Hello and welcome to the second part of this Photomatix HDR video tutorial. Now that our file has processed, it's come up with batch has been executed, results are in documents and settings, desktop, and where I located or I chose to save the files down to. So we know that our h.hdr file is ready for processing, so we now just click close, just close down the original dialog window. Go over to File, Open, and we can now open up our HDR file. After a few moments, that'll open up within Photomatix. We're just going to increase the size of the image just by going up to View and Zoom in. And once that's done, we can just zoom around the image and you can just see your HDR viewer up in the top right hand corner. Because the image is 32-bit and your screen will not be able to show 32-bit, the HDR viewer basically shows you what the exposure could be once it's all been processed properly. So as we drag over, we can see this area that's very overexposed here in the horizon is actually in the viewer perfectly okay. Again, in the shadow areas where it looks completely blacked out, we can see that actually it's not too bad. So that's basically the process of HDR. It's built up all those different exposures, giving us a picture which, although it looks at the moment like things are burnt out and things are really deep in shadow, the HDR viewer shows that actually we've got quite a nice exposure across the whole of the picture. So what we now need to do is tone map our image. So if we go up to HDR, down to tone mapping, and that'll open up the tone mapping dialog window. Increase the preview size slightly. And now what we need to do is to just adjust our strength. So we're going to take the strength of our adjustments up to 100% and our color saturation to 55. Underneath that we've got 5 different options and we're going for light smoothing of medium high, and we're going to keep our luminosity centralized at 0. Have a play around with these. You'll find that when you're actually processing your own images, you'll actually need to adjust these accordingly. If I just increase the luminosity slider, say up to 4, we'll see the whole image just lighten up. And if I take that down to say -3, you'll just see it all dull down again. So I'll take that back to 0, and that's perfect for this particular image. We're looking so it looks slightly underexposed. Now we have to take a look at tone and colour. So first of all, we're going to set our white point, and we're going to set that to about 0.6. Now, because Photomatix is very processor intensive, it's worth just using the 2 left and right tabs on the slider rather than trying to actually grab hold of the slider and move it. So just click it up until you get to roughly 0.6. I've got to 0.595 here. And again, for the same thing for the black point, we're just going to adjust that as close as we can to 0.12. I've got this up to 0.111%, so that's absolutely fine. And the gamma we're going to leave exactly where it is at 1. So once we've set our black and our white points, we can now start to play around with the colour. So if you click on the colour tab, and the only thing we want to do here is just to adjust the saturation in the shadow areas. We're just going to increase that up just a little bit to 2. Now finally, on the adjustments are the micro contrast, and this is probably the most important part when you're creating your HDR file. As default, it'd be set at about 0. If we have a look there, we can see the image suddenly lightens up, but what we want to do is just to increase that for this image at about 7 to give it enough depth. But for your own images, again, it's worth experimenting to see how it suits your particular pictures. Take that back up to 7. So once we've done that, we're pretty much ready to save that file down and take it into Photoshop to adjust the tones and correct it, ready for the final version. So before we do that, we'll just check the output depth. We're at 8-bit at the moment. We're going to increase that to 16-bit. Just means that we've got as much information in that image as possible. If you're taking it into CS3, then 16-bit is fine. If you're going into Elements, you'll need to change that to 8-bit. So all we do now is click OK, and what Photomatix will now have to do is render the file out. So it's taking the 32-bit HDR file and processing it down to a 16-bit. This will take a couple of minutes, and once done, we now have our HDR file, which is actually now just a 16-bit image rather than 32-bit, and it's ready to save down and be taken into Photoshop. So to save it, just go to File, Save As, and we're just going to give it a name, hdrimage.tiff. It's a TIFF 16-bit mode. We'll just click Save, and that's now saved down to our desktop, ready to open up in Photoshop CS3. Before I open CS3 though, I'm going to close down Photomatix just to give CS3 a little bit more processing power. Okay, I'll see you in the next part.